ESG is permanent Zeitgeist. Greetings dear listeners, welcome to the Megrow podcast. It is mid-March 2021 and this episode is number 17. During the next few minutes I will elaborate why this apparent contradiction of permanent and Zeitgeist is real. Furthermore, I'll dwell on some practical implications for insurance companies. Finally, for all the right reasons, ESG has gained the attention the topic deserves. ESG is Zeitgeist, but it's not a hype. An incredibly wide, well-informed and committed panorama of stakeholders drive ESG forward. These stakeholders include the general public, customers, shareholders, governments and their agencies, think tanks, consulting houses, investors, and last but absolutely not least, nature itself. In other words, everybody is a stakeholder in ESG. This is markedly different from past Zeitgeist topics such as InsurTech or the shareholder value, which also had prominent stakeholders but much fewer than ESG. My thoughts about ESG, formed over months of reading, listening to and talking with others, focus on what ESG actually means for business practitioners, especially the C-suite and the board of directors. The new normal is a different normal for all players in the risk transfer industry. Location, customer base, strategy, regulatory environment, and many other factors continue to shape that normal. I use a fictitious insurer called the New Norminsko, a NIC, to illustrate some of my points. Let's start with the ESG risks and some of the opportunities for this exemplary new normal in scope. I segregate the activities of NIC into three categories. Number one, core products and services, i.e. product design and underwriting. Number two, asset management. In other words, managing NIC's own funds, and the float generated by its insurance operations. And thirdly, all the activities that NIC undertakes to deploy its core products and services, such as accounting, sales, advertising, claims management, talent management, just to name a few. I'm cognizant that all three categories are tightly interwoven. Context is meaningful. I use a change management hurdle benchmark to look at the three categories separately. NIC needs to successfully deal with these changes. Asset management is the easiest category to become ESG compliant. Simply pick up the phone and tell your asset manager to shift the entire asset portfolio into ESG investment vehicles. The market has grown to dozens of billions of US dollars, is almost global, and providers are aplenty. Furthermore, the decision is with NIC's management alone. I'm cognizant that assets cannot be wholesale shifted overnight, that asset liability management, credit rating agencies' viewpoints, return considerations and other parameters need to be factored in. Still, it's just a phone call away. The stakeholder landscape gets more complex. After all, now customers are involved. Clients will only buy what they perceive as real value and/or what they are mandated to purchase. Having said that, product development and underwriting is at the core of most, but not all, insurance companies. Hence, it should be comparatively easy to manage and lead the internal change with underwriters. After all, dealing with uncertainty on objectives, otherwise also known as risk, is at the very raison d'etre of insurers like NIC. Product development in the VUCA world isn't totally straightforward. Unfortunately, IP protection still isn't commonplace. Actually, maybe it shouldn't, but that's another conversation. And in economically uncertain times, NIC's management might have to focus on short-term cost management instead of mid-term planning. Let's move on to the third category, the operations. NIC's operations, encompassing talent management, claims handling, data, IT infrastructure, office, work-from-home logistics, claims management, and many more, are clearly the most challenging change mountain to climb. Firstly, the diversity of stakeholders is larger than in the two other categories probably combined. Secondly, many aspects of operations are, rightly or wrongly, not core to NICs. Expertise might not be sufficient, some activities have been outsourced, and other processes and procedures might be obsolete in due course. Lastly, since so many different aspects are involved, one of the many questions to answer is, where do we actually start? Now, having said all that, just because something is a challenge, there's no reason to shy away from it. So what now and then? One practical way is to execute a two-pronged approach. Firstly, Implement a few meaningful yet low-hanging fruits and concomitantly work out an appropriate medium-term strategy. The choice of low-hanging fruits is quite wide. Your preferred search engine will provide plenty of meaningful suggestions. Some transactional activity is welcome. Stakeholders will note that NX management is active. Just watch out for the green labeling or greenwashing trap. Simply putting a green sticker onto an insurance policy is not ESG. Having said all that, there is no way around developing and executing a sound and comprehensive ESG strategy. Only then companies will be able to make a competitive difference and really reward and harvest the benefits of good ESG. I always recommend keeping the main stakeholders in mind. Ultimately, they will be working for NNIC and they will be buying. ESG is permanent zeitgeist. Let's all make this happen. Megrow's lead consultant and his partners have considerable experience in developing sound strategies for the risk transfer industry. Contact us via the links in the show notes below. Thank you very much for staying with me over the past few minutes. I sincerely hope you enjoy what you're doing. Stay safe and stay tuned for the next episodes. Goodbye for now.